No alien wanted to hear the boy scream, but it echoed anyway, slicing through the vent line sharp and raw like a wound torn open in silence. Liam jerked his head up from the tangle of ductwork, the wrench in his hand clanging against rusted pipe as he twisted. The emergency light overhead buzzed and blinked, casting pale gold across sweat-slick metal and steam. He thought he'd misheard. Then, "Human, please! My mom won't breathe!" The voice was high, panicked, cracking with fear. Close. Liam turned fast. A child stood just meters away, barefoot, trembling. His skin was pale green, dusted with grime and bruises. Long white hair clung to his cheeks like spider silk. Wide, glowing eyes locked onto Liam's, glistening with tears. One tiny hand clutched the hem of Liam's jacket. "I sang to her," the boy said, voice breaking. "But it didn't work. She's still cold. Please." Liam dropped everything. He didn't ask for a name, didn't ask how the kid had found him or why no one else had answered. He just followed. The tunnels twisted downward into the bones of the station, through panels warped by heat and time, past scavenged wiring taped to crumbling walls. The deeper they went, the worse the air became, thick with a subtle pressure that scraped at Liam's skin like static. Then came the smell, barely noticeable at first. Chemical, not just coolant or mold, something harsher, familiar. His stomach clenched. Industrial disinfectant. Memories surfaced uninvited. Training briefings, lab trials, courtroom lights. The scent of sterilizer was burned into him forever. And yet this wasn't sterile. It was wrong. They reached a panel that had clearly been forced open and resealed with melted vent tape. The boy, Kyle, dropped to his knees beside it, shoulders shaking. "She said this place was safe," he whispered. "She told me to stay quiet. I stayed quiet." Liam pressed his palm to the hatch. The surface was cold, the seal warped. He pulled his diagnostics reader from his kit. The sensor feeds spiked red across the board. Oxygen levels crashing, CO2 choking, toxins rising. Even lungs couldn't filter synthetic sterilants. He remembered that from old training logs. Their respiratory systems weren't like humans. No redundant structures, just coral-like folds, hyperreactive to compounds humans barely registered. Too much chemical burn, and they collapsed. "Back up," Liam said softly. Kel obeyed instantly, crawling away but never breaking eye contact. Liam cracked the panel seal and swung it open. The air that rolled out hit like a gut punch. Acrid, thin, sharp-edged. He coughed once, then pushed inside. She lay on her side, crumpled into the curve of the shaft wall. Green skin dulled to sickly gray. Tangled white hair spread like snowmelt over her shoulder. One hand clutched a ragged cloth, a child's blanket. Her chest barely moved. The bioluminescent nodes at her throat flickered weakly, a dying pulse of green and gold. Liam crawled closer, mind moving faster than his breath. Stim pack, oxygen booster, pressure mask. Now he clipped the stem injector into the side of an old repair mask, a model built for collapsed workers and ruptured ducts. It wasn't meant for non-humans, wasn't calibrated for coral-lunged Evan, but it was the only shot she had. He slid the mask gently over her face, adjusting the seal. The stem hissed into her lungs. Then he waited. 10 seconds. A twitch. Her ribs jerked. A sound escaped her throat, too soft to be called a breath, but it was something. Her throat nodes flared, a dim spark through mucus and blood. She coughed. Cale cried out and scrambled forward on all fours. "She breathed! She did it! You made her do it!" Liam didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the woman's chest, counting each shallow inhale. He adjusted the airflow on the booster and unwrapped a thermal patch, pressing it gently over her collarbone. Her body was still cold. "Mama," Cal whispered, crawling to her side. He reached out, brushing her hair from her face with shaking fingers. Her eyelids twitched. She opened her eyes. They were silver, not the metallic glint of polished steel, but deeper. Luminous, glassy, not fully aware. She saw Liam. Panic rose instantly. Her limbs jerked. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Liam backed up, hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand. or didn't believe him. Her eyes widened, throat lights flaring unevenly. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't cooperate. "I swore I'd never do this again," Liam muttered under his breath. "Never touch another damn case. Never get involved." But this wasn't a case. This was a child. He looked over at Cale, who now knelt beside her, one hand gripping hers. The kid stared at Liam, eyes wide with something new. Not just fear, something deeper. Hope. "You fixed her," the boy whispered. "You fixed the air." Liam said nothing. He didn't feel like a savior. He felt the same old panic rising in his throat, the fear of making things worse, of missing something, of acting too late. But then, the woman's fingers twitched. Slowly trembling, they moved, not to push him away, not toward her son, but toward the mask. Her fingers brushed the edge of the seal, gripped it faintly. She didn't thank him, but she didn't pull away. Liam knelt in the dim light, watching the woman's, Nara's, chest rise and fall in uneven intervals. The makeshift mask hissed softly, feeding her oxygen. Across from him, Cale had curled against her side, his small fingers tangled in her hair. The boy hadn't spoken in minutes, but his breathing was ragged, like he'd run for miles. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the jury-rigged heater and the occasional flicker of Nara's bioluminescent nodes. Weak, unsteady, but no longer fading. Liam rubbed his torn glove against his thigh. He should scavenge for supplies soon. The power coil was nearly dead, and the outer corridor still reeked of chemical runoff. But he couldn't bring himself to move. Not yet. Then, a sound. Nara's lips parted slightly. A breath passed between them, thin and hesitant. Then, with surprising clarity, she spoke. "Kyle." Her voice was rough, almost broken, like wind across cracked stone, but the sound of it filled the space like sunlight pouring into a sealed tunnel. The boy gasped. "You talked!" She tried to smile. Her lips trembled, but the shape formed, slow, fragile. Liam remained still, unsure whether to look away or meet her eyes. She turned her head toward him, not fast, but with intention. "You pulled me back," she said. Liam exhaled, realizing only then how long he'd been holding his breath. "You were dying," he replied. There wasn't time to ask permission. She blinked, lids fluttering like heavy silk. Her fingers brushed Cale's arm, and then she whispered something to him in a language Liam didn't recognize. Soft syllables that swirled in the air like water drawn through coral. Kyle nodded. He turned to Liam, translator-like. "She said thank you." Liam didn't know how to respond. The phrase felt too clean, too easy. He shifted his weight, rubbing the back of his neck. "You don't owe me anything," he muttered. "I was there. That's all." Nara tried to sit up. She grunted in pain as her arm gave out. Liam moved on instinct. "Wait, don't push it. You were unconscious too long. Your lungs still aren't right." Her breath caught. The glow in her throat flared, weak but alive. "Even air is breath," she rasped. "Breath is memory." He frowned. "I don't understand." "Breath holds our past. Singing is how we speak it." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "When I lost mine, I thought I'd lost myself." Liam stared. The glow in her throat pulsed in uneven patterns, alive but unstable, like a signal trying to reestablish itself. She looked away as if embarrassed. "I'm still not whole." "You're still breathing," he said. "That counts for something." Cale climbed into her lap, careful not to press against her chest. She wrapped her arms around him with effort, and the boy buried his face in her neck, clutching at her with a kind of desperate quiet Liam didn't have a word for. Then Nara looked up at him again. "What is your name?" He hesitated. "Liam." Her head tilted slightly. "You smell like dust and metal, but also clean air." He didn't laugh, but his lips twitched. "I get that a lot." She closed her eyes for a moment. "Nara." He nodded, committing it to memory. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, just full. Liam checked the power coil beside him. The charge was almost gone. He'd have to scavenge soon or risk losing heat. "We need to move her," he said aloud. "Somewhere with steady airflow. Clean heat." Kyle stirred. There's a place, small but quiet. Mom and I stayed there before. Is it close? The boy nodded. Through the pipes. Liam sighed. He'd spent years crawling through half-broken systems, mapping forgotten routes no one else used. That was before the scandal, before the guilt. Now those skills had weight again. You'll need to lead the way, he said. Kyle's small hand slid into his, warm, trembling. Okay. Liam turned back to Nara, still breathing, still alive. He adjusted the thermal wrap over her chest, then carefully slid his arms beneath her shoulders and knees. She was lighter than she looked, too thin. Her skin was cool like a sunless stone. When he lifted her, she didn't resist. Her head fell lightly against his shoulder. He felt the barest flutter of breath against his neck. Not quite trust, not yet, but not rejection either. The tunnels smelled of rust and ionized fear. Liam adjusted his grip on Nara as Kale led them through a collapsed bypass corridor, their footsteps swallowed by the groans of dying infrastructure. The boy moved like a ghost, bare feet silent against corroded metal, his white hair glowing faintly in the emergency strip's crimson light. Here, Cal whispered, stopping before a rusted hatch. Liam ducked through the opening. The space beyond was barely larger than a storage pod, its walls patched with scrap plating and insulation. A broken food warmer blinked in the corner. But the air didn't burn. He knelt, laying Nara onto a mat of folded fabric scraps. Her throat nodes pulsed once, brighter, before dimming again. She's warmer, Cal said, pressing his ear to her chest. Liam didn't answer. His attention locked onto the emergency panel by the door. The outer camera feed showed 3 flickers of movement in the far corridor. Boots, armor, rifles. Kyle. His voice went blade sharp. How often do patrols sweep this level? The boy's fingers knotted in his mother's sleeve. Mama said, every 72 hours? They're early. Liam ripped open the panel, rewiring the camera feed into a loop. Someone tipped them off. Nara's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. Her silver eyes were fully alert now. Take him. Go. Not happening. He pried her fingers loose, gentle but firm, and pressed a salvaged shock rod into her palm. If they breach that door, aim for the joints in their armor. A metallic thud echoed through the chamber, then another. Liam! Kale's voice trembled. Do they take people away? Only if they see them. He yanked his tool satchel open, assembling a makeshift jammer from spare parts. Nara pulled her son against her. This time we stay together. The banging stopped. Silence. Then, the hiss of a plasma torch cutting through the hatch seal. Liam moved. He slapped the jammer onto the doorframe, just as the first enforcer kicked through. The man's visor flickered with static, blind for 3 precious seconds. Name! The enforcer barked. Liam Ventnor, civil technician, formerly registry level 8. He stepped forward, putting himself between the armored figures and Nara. ID 674-79C. The second enforcer's rifle twitched upward. Registered occupants? Liam didn't blink. My bonded mate and our son. A beat of stunned silence. Kale's breath hitched. Nara went rigid. The lead enforcer's visor tilted toward her. Species? Even, Liam said. Approved for refugee status in Sector 12. Relocated after the gas line rupture. He held up a cracked ID chip. Scanners down. Cross-reference the registry. You're the alectologist. The third enforcer's voice dripped recognition. The one who used to be. Liam's jaw tightened. Not anymore. The lead enforcer stepped closer. There's a bounty for undocumented alien families. Liam didn't flinch. She's mine. A pause. The enforcer glanced past him, saw Nara holding Kyle, the boy's white hair streaked with tunnel grime, his glowing eyes wide with something that wasn't quite fear, something worse, understanding. Next sweep's in 72 hours, the enforcer finally said. Don't be here. The door hissed shut. Liam didn't move until the footsteps faded completely. When he turned, Nara was staring at him with an expression he couldn't name. Cal broke the silence first. You said we were yours. Not a question, an observation. Nara rose unsteadily. Her steps were slow, deliberate. She stopped just before Liam, her hands trembling, then reached out and pressed her palm flat against his chest, over his heart. Her throat nodes flared. "In even courtship," she whispered, "breath is shared before the soul follows." Liam's voice went rough. "What does that mean?" She leaned forward. Not a kiss. Something more intimate. Her exhale warmed his collarbone, a breath given freely. "It means I see you." Behind them, the broken food warmer sputtered back to life. The smuggler's ship smelled of oil and dried kelp, its hull vibrating with the deep-throated hum of engines pushed beyond their limits. Liam braced one hand against the ceiling as the vessel shuddered through the last of the atmosphere, his other arm wrapped securely around Cal. The boy's face pressed against the viewport, his breath fogging the glass as the station's skeletal spires shrank beneath them. "Clouds," Cal whispered. "Real ones." Above them, the dome's polarized shielding thinned to transparency, revealing a sky the color of burnished copper. Sunlight, true sunlight, unfiltered by layers of industrial plating, flooded the cabin. It caught in Nara's hair as she leaned forward, her throat nodes pulsing in a slow, awed rhythm Liam had never seen before. "You're shaking," she murmured, pressing her palm against his. He wasn't sure if she meant him or herself. 3 weeks later. Salt. That was the first thing Liam noticed about the coastal colony. The crisp, briny tang of it, carried on winds that sang through the hydro-lantern gardens. Their new home clung to the cliffs like a stubborn mollusk, its whitewashed walls grown from living mineral composite that pulsed faintly in harmony with the tides. Cal exploded into the house at dawn, his bare feet slapping against wave-smooth floor tiles. "The repair garden let me keep the spanner, and Mexori says I can help recalibrate the—" "Breathe, little flame," Nara laughed, catching him as he skidded into the kitchen. The motion pulled at her loose tunic, revealing a new curve to her waistline that hadn't been there last month. Liam froze mid-sip of his Bray-root tea. "Nara." She met his gaze over Cale's head, held it, then guided the boy's hand to her stomach, with a smile that made Liam's ribs ache. "A sibling needs strong lungs," she said simply. Cale's gasp could have powered the colony's grid. That evening, Liam found Nara in the alcove she'd claimed as her studio. The walls bore sweeping murals of violet and pearl, but it was the floor that stopped him, rows of flat stones, each etched with names in curling Evan script and blocky human letters. "For those who didn't get to leave the tunnels," she said without turning. He knelt beside her, recognized the names from her whispered stories, the chorus teacher from Sector 5, the gas line inspector who'd loved bad jokes, the child who'd shared Cale's first hiding place. Nara's fingers brushed the centermost stone. "We honor them with breath now, not silence." Then she sang, not the frantic, healing hums of the vents, nor the fearful lullabies she'd used to cloak Cale's presence. This was something deeper, a melody that resonated in Liam's molars, in the hollow behind his sternum. It tasted of seawater and new beginnings. When the last note faded, Kyle appeared in the doorway, clutching a honey-scented bloom from the community garden. "For your voice," he declared, pressing it into Nara's hands, "so it never goes quiet again." Liam reached for them both. The flower's petals trembled between them, alive with the same impossible rhythm as Nara's throat nodes, as Cale's racing pulse, as the second heartbeat growing beneath Liam's palm. Outside, the tide rolled in. Somewhere beyond the dunes, a human child laughed with an Evan friend, their voices weaving through wind chimes, and for the first time in his life, Liam understood what it meant to be home.